Hi, I'm talking with a group of pastors here, and we're talking about if the church made New Year's resolutions, what would we seek to improve? And I want to pick back up on this conversation here. Jorge, you were talking about integration, and you in this article that we've all been featured in the Columbia Union, you made an interesting point. You wrote this: we have created a lot of veggie eating, non-earring wearing, non-movie theater going, Pathfinder uniform wearing members who are culturally Adventist but aren't truly focused on our walk with God. I want you to expound on that.
Well, I came to that conclusion after some years asking, just regular Adventist youth, just a simple question in whatever it was that they did. For example, not wearing earrings. I'd go up to them and I'd say, well, why don't you wear earrings? And their answers were, well, because the pastor said we can't, or, because my mom said I shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, but do you even know why you do what you do? You understand? So that really bugged me. And seeing it throughout the years, I've encountered it time and time again. So I proposed that in the churches, we, instead of just promoting the rules right up front, although, we want to lead them into a Christian life, we uplift Christ. Like he said, if I were to be uplifted, I would attract all men to me. And that's what I try to do, and I resolve to do every time I have the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely, which would make, what would a Christian's walk look like? And if that change happens, and instead of this list of things that I don't do, I'm following Christ. What's the difference?
See, that's where it gets really good. See, because that's where I take it to where they live. You understand? We want to turn the young people into what our ideal is. But rather, if you were to meet them on their ground, like I play football with the guys, and I'll play on the field with them, and when they do a bad play on me, and I'll just turn around and say, that's no worries, bro, just I get up and brush it off, and they see it, and I say, you know what, that's how a Christian acts on the field, or that's how a Christian acts in school. You know what I'm saying? Just live in it.
Absolutely. Jeff, go ahead.
There's a theory about three story. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's where you have God's story, your story, and other story. And when my story is integrated with God's story, when I am acting like Him, when I am submitting to Him daily, then it's easy for me to talk about God to my friends. Because as those three circles interact, as more they interact, the easier it is for me to share. If they're separate, if God's over here, I'm here, and you're over here, I'm never going to be able to tell you about God.
Yes.
And it's so true that we need to give ourselves to Christ daily.
You're talking about compartmentalization, where we put God in one. He's there on church, but not when we're on the basketball court or at our job or et cetera, et cetera. Diego, I want you to jump in on this, man. What are your thoughts about how we kind of compartmentalize God and how we can better integrate Him to everyday life?
I think the first thing we need to understand and really evaluate our theology of God. The way we act really resembles the way we believe that God is. This kind of place that God is up in heaven, looking down and punishing people for doing their bad actions. They're really not getting the right picture. They're not really the text that God is a loving God. From the very first page in Genesis throughout all the last page in the Revelation, we see a loving God. It's willing to integrate Himself, to accept people. And a lot of people say, well, God doesn't care about me. Well, He became flesh. Jesus forever, for the whole eternity, would be flesh. He have scars on His hands. So when we understand that God is not a God who is far away from us, is a God who is right here, relevant, and He cares for people. When we understand that, we'll start caring as God does. Otherwise, He's up there and we don't act as He would.
Now, what you just mentioned there, if we were to really use modern terminology, we could say what God did was radical. To send Himself into this kind of modern context and to be born in the flesh as a human, that was a radical move to save folks' lives. So if we're really talking about following Jesus, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous proposition. And I wonder how scary that might be for our churches today if we were really to follow Jesus 100%.
One thing that I liked what both these guys were saying here when it comes to this integration concept, not only is God a loving God, but He's also a God that integrates.
Amen.
Both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, you see example after example after example of situations where if I was God, I would be very scared to release the reins to these individuals who are flawed and crazy and untrustworthy and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's something that we battle as people as well within the context of our church. In other words, God is saying, this is what I want to accomplish, and I want you to partner with me on that. And so getting people integrated into that is so crucial, but where
we lose control. And
we lose control.
That could be
bad.
That could be bad, right?
That is the scary part.
We may do something that we're not supposed to do, or we may end up in a situation that is not common to our tradition.
Right.
So how do we follow Jesus anyway, despite what may happen? But I've got to put a pin right there because we're just about out of time, and we're going to have to come back and go to break. But let's pick back up on this topic. All right. We're going to come back. We have more to talk with these gentlemen about these pastors who are on the cutting edge of ministry and actually integrating their lives into the fabric of their community. So we're going to come back and talk with these pastors in just a second.